Hey guys, morning. How are you doing? Today we're talking about cynophobia, which is the fear of dogs. It's a less common fear than the fear of spiders and snakes. Many people fear man's best friends. Best friend. Here's how to recognize and handle a fear of dogs. This article is by Rosemary Black. Thank you, Rosemary. Let's jump into it. How does the phobia begin? Symptoms, cause, treatments, options. How to overcome fear of dogs. Do you have a fear of dogs? Cynophobia, or the fear of dogs, is not as common as the fear of spiders or arachnophobia. Dogs don't have 8 legs or come in a variety of poisonous types. Arguably less scarier than spiders, still most people have a phobia of dogs. They are afraid of dogs for many reasons. Maybe a dog chased them as a child, or they know someone who has been bitten by a dog, or they themselves were bitten. For whatever reason, people can be scared of dogs to the point where it can affect their lifestyle, including preventing them from going over friends' homes or taking walks outside. Understanding where this fear stems from and getting acquainted with it with available treatment techniques can help people with even the biggest fear of dogs overcome this phobia and start feeling friendlier towards man's best friend. Sounds good? How does the phobia begin? Many people fear dogs from a very young age, says Lori Velato, MD, Chief Medical Officer at Northwell Health South Oaks Hospital in Amityville, New York. As with many other anxiety disorders, a person may have a genetic predisposition to develop a phobia such as cynophobia, she says. But genetics do not necessarily mean that they will develop it. She says your environment and experience can have a great influence. Whether you develop a phobia or not, you're sure you are not sure if you have a phobia or you simply don't prefer dogs. Ask yourself whether you go out of your way to avoid dogs whenever you can. Does the perceived need to keep dogs out of your life interfere with your daily functioning? Do you feel like you are having a panic attack when you see a dog? Do you realize that your fear of dogs is not only excessive but also unrealistic? You may have cynophobia symptoms of cynophobia. The symptoms of cynophobia can vary widely. Some individuals will start to have symptoms even when they are just thinking about it. Potential contact with a dog, while the symptoms in another person begin only when the person is exposed directly to a dog, says Dr. Magellan. Typically, a person with cynophobia begins to experience significant dread, anxiety, and worry at the thought of being exposed to a dog. They will try to avoid any situation in which they might be around a dog. Dr. Vajalario says symptoms can include increased heart rate, nausea, sweating, shortness of breath, and shaking, crying, or screaming. Causes of cynophobia. Most cases of cynophobia develop during childhood. As you may know, you may have had an unpleasant encounter with a dog at some point. Even if you weren't bitten, you may have been chased or felt threatened, or even if you weren't the victim of an unpleasant encounter yourself, you may have seen someone else being chased or bitten. If that person was physically hurt, and if she or he is a close friend or relative, you're even more likely to develop a fear of dogs. Lastly, last of all, you may have acquired your fear of dogs my fear of dogs indirectly, possibly from a parent with a cynophobia or from the media. A theory devised by evolutionary psychologists holds that a fear of dogs gradually evolved as a survival mechanism. Many years ago, it would have been useful in the days when hungry wild predators roam to be afraid of dogs and to get out of their way. Treatment options for cynophobia, cognitive behavior, CBT, is very effective at treating cynophobia, says Gretchen Hirsch, PhD, clinical director at the Ross Center in Washington, D.C., which treats individuals with anxiety and related disorders. We work with the patient to create a graded fear hierarchy, she says. We might start by having the person imagine petting a dog as the exposure begins. The person closer to the object of their fear. The person keeps an anxiety journal and writes down the situation that is causing the anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest. For example, for someone with a severe dog phobia, a therapist might start out by exposing them to a picture or a video of a dog. Then, gradually over time, they would progress to perhaps a toy dog and then an actual dog. Dr. Villaggio says that the time and intensity progression of the exposure will be individualized depending upon the person's tolerance and symptom severity. CBT combined with exposure therapy is very effective with xenophobia. Dr. Villaggio says the behavior part of CBT is to gradually expose the person to the fear objected, in this case, dogs. The cognitive part is looking at the person's mistaken beliefs where you think a dog is actually going to bite you. Dr. Herschel says we work on muscle tension. If the person is tense, then the body sends a signal to the brain that they are in danger. Some of the anxiety that comes with xenophobia is anticipatory anxiety, Dr. Hirsch says. So it's important to recognize the thoughts that are leading to and maintaining the anxiety, she says. How to overcome the fear of dogs. One way to minimize the risk of developing xenophobia is to interact with a dog as soon as possible after a personal or a witnessed negative encounter with a dog. Dr. Villaggio says if you have a friend, loved one, or neighbor who has a well behaved dog, ask if you or your loved one who has a fear of dogs might spend some time with the well behaved dog. Educate yourself, read all you can about dogs. Just learning how it is to be bitten by a dog might be comforting the same way it can be comforting to know how likely it is that something bad will happen to your airplane when flying. Get help, share it with your loved ones that you have an irrational fear of dogs, and ask your healthcare professional for the name of a therapist who treats phobias who could help you overcome xenophobia. Recognize your fear, discuss it with others, and seeking help will allow you to overcome your phobia. Sounds good, guys? So need some help? There's help out there. There's also hypnosis and some other methods you can use as well. Go check them out. All right, let's be friendly to our dogs. Awesome. I'm a dog owner too, so I love them. Take care, guys. Have a great day and be positive.